everybody, and welcome to episode 90 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, the podcast for indie authors by indie authors, where we discuss today's topics and issues that matter to the business of the self-published author. I am your moderator, Wade Finnegan, and my co-panelists are Xavier Granville.
Hello, internets.
And we'll love that smile. You can't see
real
her
creepy.
yet. Yeah, real creepy.
Yeah, it's a real big creepy smile. Hello, internets.
You can't see her yet, but Michelle Reed will be here. And our special panelist for this evening, as I said on the site, needs no introduction, but Carl Sinclair is in the house. Hello, Carl.
It's been a while since I've been on this show.
It has been a while. It has been a long while.
I tried to
it's been a while.
Twice.
Yeah, you tried to hit it with a shovel and it still wouldn't die. Right? Yeah, so you can't. For those watching live on YouTube or on the site, you cannot see Carl tonight because, you know, it's hot in Australia, so the camera doesn't.
I'm having some computer issues.
But he's a trooper.
And he's dripping sweat.
Yeah, probably is. So, anyway. Most of you probably know who Carl is, but just in case, give you a little background. He is one of the founding fathers of the show. He takes total credit for it, but I beg to differ. But anyway, he is also the co-author of a very successful book titled Sixth Cycle with Darren Waremouth, who has been on the show quite a few times. So we're gonna talk about that book. We're gonna talk about Carl's new book that's coming out soon, but just got delayed a little bit, and actually that's going to be an interesting conversation within that. And, you know, Carl's just an all-around interesting guy, done lots of things. He will tell you the ins and outs of how to cook really well and how to play cricket superbly. So, you know, he's well-rounded dude.
I have put together a 30-minute cricket masterclass. For the second half of the show, I'll explain how to bowl a googly or a wrong, and we'll play some cover drives and some of the other amazing shots in cricket. So
I'm not sure you could say that on YouTube. But is that okay?
A googly? A googly. Yeah.
I thought that was like only just like something from Zoolander, a you Googleizer.
Well, okay, yeah, well, new vocabulary too. So it's, you know, it's a very informative show. So to everyone watching us live on the selfpublishingroundtable.com, we encourage you to leave questions, comments. Go ahead and troll the hell out of them if you like. We'll make our best efforts to get all that into the conversation tonight. Also, after the show is over, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. I'm almost to the point of begging, people. Please leave us a review on iTunes or give us a social media share. It all helps to keep us viable and going strong. So, yeah, yes.
I've spent like the last 18 months trolling pretty much anyone that watches any podcast or appears on any podcast. So hopefully no one will show up.
That was your master plan, right? Then you go on those podcasts and nobody will watch. Yeah. That's a great idea, Carl. Yeah, it's really thanks for that. So, Xavier, anything in your court going on? Any announcements to make? Anything like that?
No. Thanks to, like I said last week, have had a lot more people talk to me about joining on with that author anthology that I was working on with the sci-fi fairy tale adaptations. So it's cool to hear a lot of people. Kind of like a turnover from people listening to the show coming out to offer their services to either be doing editing or writing a new story. So yeah, it's just great to hear all that fan interaction of just people who watch the show now, and going to be working with them for this box set / anthology idea. It's pretty cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's great to see our viewers getting involved. So thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I can't wait for that to come out. All right, Carl, I'll kick off with a question here for you. Get you talking. Know that you probably don't need any more questions after one, but I wanted to talk a little bit about collaboration. Starting off with, first off, give us maybe just a little bit of background of how you and Darren ended up working together, and and why you thought that was so successful? Because obviously it's been doing really well. So what makes for a good collaboration?
How did we start working together? It's actually a beautiful story.
Were there flowers involved?
What had happened was back in the day, obviously, when I was on SPRT, I did a lot of the guest booking, and I was quite interested in keeping a track of new authors and how they were doing on Amazon, and I obviously spotted Darren with his first book, First Activation. It had, as has been talked about many times, a really successful launch. And he sold a lot of books and did really well straight out of the bat. So I had emailed him about coming on the show, and through that email chain, it ended up becoming a several hundred email conversation between the two of us, as he obviously is English and lives in England, but had also lived in Australia and New Zealand, and I had lived in England, Australia and New Zealand. So we had a bit of a friendship spark up immediately, as we had a lot of stuff in common, including love of vodka and kebabs and cricket, obviously. So it kind of just came from there. Like, we got to chatting. He was on the show, come on 2 or 3 times pretty quickly, if you remember. And one night we were just chatting away on Skype, and the original idea for 6 Cycles sort of came up. It just kind of naturally came from that. We decided to come up with an outline and see what happened. Basically, there was no pressure or plan or anything. Just see what came of it, and that's how it sort of came about. So
nice. And how's that relationship been? Why do you think it's so successful? How does that work for you guys, especially being, time zones apart and all that sort of thing? And how did you guys work all that out?
It took a while for us to. I think we had a lot of stuff in common. As I said, we liked the same type of books. We liked the same type of TV shows. So that made the actual ideas pretty easy. We built off of those ideas quite easily with each other, and obviously when we were outlining 6 Cycle, there wasn't a lot of arguments. We didn't think in different ways. We were very similar in the type of books that we liked. We had a similar idea of what made a good post-apocalyptic or dystopian book. So that part of it was quite easy. Our styles of writing were quite different, though. Darren had obviously been writing a lot more thriller, sci-fi type books, whereas before we started writing 6 Cycle, had mainly been working on fantasy, which is, as Xavier can stand to, quite a different type of prose, a different way of looking at books, a lot slower paced, longer chapters, longer sentences. So there was quite a bit of adaptation to be done there. I had to really learn from Darren the best way to write basically sci-fi thrillers, and that kind of writing is a lot different than what I was used to, so that took a lot of work at the beginning. That was kind of the main, not conflict, but that was the main difference at the beginning of working together.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome how you guys, start with some chit-chatting and end up writing this really successful book. So
yeah, well, I mean, it sounds easy, but it was a long process. The original 6 Cycle that we started writing and outlining isn't the book that actually ended up coming out. We actually had gotten, I think we'd been working on the outline for a few weeks, and we're about a third of the way through. We're about 10 or 12 chapters through the original draft of the first book, which was much more of an alien invasion story, similar to Critical Dawn, his other book that he wrote with Colin Barnes. But there was just something not quite right about it, and it wasn't quite working. So we actually ended up scrapping the whole book, the whole idea, all of the chapters that we'd worked on, and we started again. We left it for a few weeks, and then we came back in, went back to the outline and look at the concepts, look at the genres that were selling really well, and refocused it and took the whole alien side of things, which was a major part of that book, out of it, and made it more about humans set in a more dystopian setting, and completely changed the whole structure of that book. And once we did that, it only took us, I think, it was about 6 weeks from outline to the end of that book to write it in the end. And we did that because we felt that it was a stronger book for the market as it was, and it definitely was going to sell better than what the idea we were working on, even though we really liked the original idea. It just wasn't clicking.
That's interesting. So some of it wasn't clicking, and some of it you were thinking about future market as well. Then when you did that too.
Totally, yeah. I think there was no point in continuing with something that we both weren't 100% excited about. And the idea is a good one, and it's something that we still might go back to, and we have talked about that. But once we looked at it and realized that there was something wrong, I think we came up with a much stronger idea, and I think that's something important that I've definitely learned, and I think a lot of indies could learn, is not just to push forward with a project. If there's something not right, maybe there is something wrong. It might be something major, it might be something small, but you probably want to reassess what you're doing, and you don't necessarily have to proceed and publish something just because you've written it or just because you feel like you should. We ended up putting out the book that we both felt was really strong, and as fans of the genre would really resonate with the readers, which is what's happened in the end.
That's a good point. I think a lot of it. It's kind of like, because a lot of times and he's doing this on the side, they feel like, okay, I'm only got so much time to do what I can do. I get to something, I want to finish it because gosh darn it, I only have so much time.
I certainly fell into that trap myself. I'd written 2 or 3, 4 books before Sixth Cycle that were all working towards being published, and none of those books had been, because of the lessons that I learned on Sixth Cycle, because I can see now that there's some issues one way or another. It might be something to do with the plot, or it might be that audience that I was aiming it at wasn't quite right, or I didn't quite hit the mark everywhere that I think that those readers are going to want. And I think the readers in those genres, especially in some of these subgenres of sci-fi and fantasy, are very specific in the type of things that they like. And as one of those readers, and reading the books that were doing really well at the top of these charts and continuous, not just doing well for a short period, but sticking around, you can see that there's a lot of markers that are really similar in those books. And those readers keep coming back to that same author and keep buying that same book over and over for a reason. And if you don't hit those markers, then you're just going to have a book that's not going to sit up there in the charts. And that's why I think reading and enjoying the books in the genre that you're writing is just as important as anything else that an indie can do. If you don't understand the genre you're writing, you don't understand why those readers keep coming back and voraciously rip through 5 books a month, then how do you know that you're writing the book that they want?
Good point. You also talked a little bit about the outlining process. How detailed of outline do you guys do? Do you do story beats like other we've talked about?
Yeah, the first version of Sixth Cycle, we actually went quite detailed. It was Baron just woke up, unfortunately. That means he's probably going to come troll me now. Yeah, so the original outline, we actually did outline the whole book. And I don't know about you guys, but I've found in the past that I originally started off as a pantser, and then I moved heavily to outlining through advice of a bunch of people and a bunch of books. But then I found a different problem, and that problem was that once I'd outlined the whole book, it kind of felt like it was out of my system and it was already written, and I really struggled to write it because the outline was already there, and I kind of felt like, well, I've already told that story now. There's nothing fresh inside of me. So the first thing I tried to do was change it and not outline the characters as such, just outline the plot, and then make up characters as I went along, and that certainly helped. But I think the part of that problem with the original Sixth Cycle was that we had outlined everything and there wasn't much left to tell, and I think that's why we struggled. And we didn't have a particularly good system. I think we tried to copy what Darren had used with his brother and with Colin before, which wasn't necessarily right for the two of us. It wasn't until we looked at it and found a different way to work together that things kind of meshed better and worked better with the second book. So when we wrote Sixth Cycle the second time, we only outlined, and Darren can probably correct me, he probably will, it was about 6 or 8 chapters of the start of the book. We had a rough idea of some major plot points and where the book would possibly end, but we really hadn't talked about characters or anything specific, apart from a few big ideas that we wanted to see happen in the book. And then we outlined the first 6 or 8 chapters and wrote those 6 or 8 chapters independently. So we split the point of views. I had the female point of view character and he had the male. And then we reviewed each chapter as they came in. We uploaded them to Dropbox, and we looked at them and talked about where the story was going, made amendments as we were going. And then after we finished those initial 8 chapters, we got together and had another story meeting and talked about the next 10 chapters and what we were going to do and where it was going to go.
Interesting. I really like the fact that you were open to a lot of experimentation and trying different things. I'm kind of in that same boat. I've been wrestling with pantsing to outlining. I'm reading Libby Hawker's new book, Take Off Your Pants.
Get your pants on.
Yeah. That is, and I'm really enjoying it, and I like what she has to say. But it's, I think finding that what works for you, and then also then you throw in another author, like you said, and you got to find out what works for the both of you. So, really, really good points there. Xavier, I don't want to hog all of this, and so do you have a question? I'm putting you on the spot. Xavier, can you hear me?
Xavier.
Yeah, sorry, my mic just flipped. The mic turned off.
Okay.
Yeah, there was one part of one of the questions that you asked earlier, Wade, that I'm not sure if you addressed, Carl, was the time difference between you and Darren kind of a hindrance, or how did that work into it?
I think it probably would be more for people that slept at all. Darren and I, we hold some pretty crazy hours, although both of us in recent months have tried to get to bed a bit earlier. It seems like for somehow, I'm not sure how it's worked out, but we always seem to be awake at the same times, whether it's night for me or night for him. He is sleeping more than he was, and so am I. But at the time that we wrote it, it didn't seem like a big issue. I can see how it would be for someone in Australia working with someone in England who was normal. But I think between the two of us, it wasn't a big issue because of our sleeping patterns. But I think because of the way that we structured the book deliberately, that there was 2 point of views and the stories were independent of each other, and only sort of meshed 2 or 3 times during the book, we could go away and write independently 3 or 4 chapters, upload them, and then have the other person review them when they wake up, and put comments or suggest changes or try and bring it back. I suppose it didn't really matter so much, except for those touch points when the stories come across each other 2 or 3 times during the book. That was when we really needed to be working closer together to make sure that timelines and everything matched up, not so much all of the time. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think like it always does kind of differ between certain authors and when they do the collaborative efforts. Like you hear like stories about like Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman doing like where Terry Pratchett was on the day duties and Gaiman did nights where they lived in the same house and they just it was like a 24-hour shift work between the two of them. It's always just interesting to see how authors are able to get around those barriers, especially when literally countries divide you.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think if we were in a, Darren just said evening, Carl was a slave driver. Might have been the other way around. Yeah, no, I think if I slept and was awake in my normal time zone and Darren was the same, it probably would be a lot more difficult. But we found a way to make it work.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right. To try to have too much dead air, because Carl used to always give me a bad time about that when he was on the show. So,
yeah, what a jerk.
Yeah, let's welcome Michelle. That can kill some time.
Hey, Michelle.
Hello. Why can we not see Carl's face?
Carl's camera is over
my camera is not working.
in the Australian.
Just break the internet again.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Darn it.
Hey, you
Sorry,
want to talk? We can't see your face either. Come on, turn your camera.
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, get it going.
Next.
Do you need to put your face on?
My face is on. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
So we'll
okay.
just all pretend that I look like this.
it's the no face show tonight. I see how it is.
That was always an expression that I always freaked out about. It was like, I have to go put on my face. I'm like, where did you leave it?
It's a different face. The first one is a real face. We just want to have a different face.
Yeah, that's scary.
One's pretty and don't make people go, ah! Put it away.
There's a question in the comments, which you...
I'm fired already. I'm looking.
From Saffron.
Yep. Okay, I got it.
Go ahead, Xavier.
Saffron asks, I would love to know how the lovely Carl worked out what would appeal to the market.
I think, as I said, Darren and I are both big readers, specifically in sci-fi, a lot of post-apocalyptic books and dystopian books, and we both read them for several decades. So it didn't take a lot to know what we liked, I guess, from the books that we read. But I think reading some of the books at the top of the genre that interests you, and not just the ones that sort of peak, that might be on an ad or just show up for a week or two or a couple of days and then scoot away. Some of the books that maybe have stuck around in that top 50, top 20 of the subgenre that interests you, if they're up there a lot and they stick around for a while, there's usually a reason. And if you read 4 or 5 of those, usually you can find out why those books are there and why they're similar to each other. And kind of take parts from that, the structure of that, or the type of pace of that book, or the type of settings in those books, and work out what you need to put in your book to resonate with those readers, because they're going to keep buying the same stuff, basically. Doesn't matter what genre.
Oh, that's a good point. What did you find now that you're working on this the new book after Sixth Cycle, where it's a solo effort, going from primarily writing by yourself and then going to the collaborative? What was the experience of going back to solo? Did you find that there's lessons? But did you find any lessons learned at all?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot. The book that I'm writing now is probably different than the book I would have originally written. I decided to follow up Sixth Cycle with a similar type of book in a similar type of genre. And I think I learned what I learned in Sixth Cycle I've been able to take forward with the actual writing quality and the type of writing, the pace of those type of books that I wasn't doing before, the type of sentence structure that was required to sell to that genre, which I wasn't doing before. So I got a better understanding of what market and what reader I'm writing for. But I think it's also been a struggle to not have someone over your shoulder all of the time and being able to bounce off the same way as I was when I was rock working with Darren. Whereas now I have actually sent stuff to Darren from Escalation Force, which is the book that I'm working on, to get that feedback and get that second pair of eyes, even at this early stage of the book being completed, because I valued that collaboration so much. And it is just better. I think I don't feel that Darren or I would have come up with a stronger book as Six Cycle ended up being on our own if we hadn't worked with one another, because of the way that those ideas that we each came up with joined together and then expanded. I just think that there is something strong about working with another author on a daily basis on a book.
I have a question, and I don't know if you covered it already, but did you already talk about how it changed from the beginning?
Yeah, we did talk about that quite a bit. Yeah.
Quite a bit. Thanks for adding that. I'm looking for other questions. Hold on. Zach Bohannon really loves American football?
Yeah.
No, he says you love American football, but we all know that.
Yeah, I don't know if football has the same meaning to Carl as it does to guys in the States.
No,
So,
I think
oh, go ahead.
they're all just trying to incite ire in him. They're going on about
they're really
football and
American football.
They're just trying to they're trying to get Carl to say something.
The lady at the doctor's office today was talking about how much she loves soccer, and she told me literally all of the soccer words in the whole world, and I said, do you also like rugby? And a full minute passed before she spoke, and she was like, what's that? And I just said, never mind, I gotta go.
See, Carl's enlightened you. You know more things about other sports now than you would ever, Michelle. So there you go.
Made me look like an idiot.
Obviously, don't reference rugby in Oklahoma.
I guess not, no.
We are well known for playing sports against other countries, unlike America.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Some people say it's because you guys are really rubbish at sport and you just don't want to play against each other, or some people just say that you're such a big country that you don't need to play with anyone else. Like, you decide. You decide which one it is.
We'll take our ball and go home. Thank you very much. All right.
Wade had it for real.
Darren Wehrmouth just said American football is a soft version of rugby. So.
Yes. Thank you for your insight, Darren.
Yes. Thank you for that, man. I feel more enlightened. Carl, how has it been balancing daddy life with writing life? I know that's something that everybody fights with time and stuff, and so how are you structuring your days now trying to write your next book?
It's, for those who don't know, I actually left work, my day job, in February, and I've been looking after my baby son full-time since then, plus writing. I actually got more writing done before that, surprise, surprise, when I was working part-time and had none of the kids home. But I've just had to find a way to work around it. I don't get a lot of writing done during the day, so I do a lot more admin type stuff, website stuff, or social media stuff, or replying to emails during the day now when he's asleep. Sometimes I'll get a bit of writing done when he's having a nap. I now tend to do a majority of my writing between about 8:30 at night to about midnight to anywhere between 8:30 p.m. and 3 a.m. It's usually when I do writing now.
And so when do you do the sleeping thing?
3 a.m. to 5 a.m. is allotted for sleep.
All right.
2 hours, really? Wow.
Well, hopefully I get to bed before 3, but usually I'm up till, well, you guys probably know, you're all in America and Canada and end up talking to me in times when I shouldn't be awake. It's usually about midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. So.
Hey, you messaged me.
Yeah, don't blame this on us, dang it.
We are graced with his presence.
Yeah. Oh, if Carl wants to talk, you talk back.
But don't talk back, or else it'll be really sad.
Yeah. You respond.
Dude, there's a lot of memes on the website tonight, guys.
Yeah,
a lot of names.
Memes?
Memes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I like it.
No, our viewing audience isn't trying to take this too seriously, I can see, but that's okay. I don't mind that. I'll try to keep it on track somehow. So, Carl, obviously Six Cycle has been doing really, really well, and you've kind of hinted at some of that already about talking about knowing your genre and stuff, but I think there's a lot of people that maybe be a little bit skeptical that it's being so sticky just because of that. What do you attribute the, has it been 4 weeks out, 5 weeks out, 5 weeks? I don't know. And still
the original book came out in late November. And Darren and I put together a launch plan there that was a bit different than the successful launches he'd tried before. We just tried something a bit different. And it did okay, and it got some visibility, but it didn't stay up the charts like it has the second time. And whilst it still sold a reasonable amount of books in that few months, and it was in KDP Select, and it was getting some borrowers, we were still selling every day, and it was doing okay. But we both realised that the book we'd written was very much designed for the market, but we realised that the packaging of that book wasn't necessarily aimed at the market that we'd written for. We knew from all of the feedback that we were getting and all the reviews we were getting and the people that were actually reading the book that they really liked it, and when it got into the hands of those readers, they really enjoyed it and it did resonate with them, but we couldn't get it to resonate on the store in the same way. So we had a look at it again. We went back and looked at the cover, which, as I said, we'd originally written the book as a different idea. That cover that we had was a Jason Gurley cover and a really nice cover, but we had designed it specifically for that story and stuck with the cover as it was a good cover. We realised that cover didn't best translate to the story that we'd ended up writing, so we ended up hiring a designer, and we paid a lot more money to get another cover done, which you can see on the website is much more closely resembles the book that we ended up writing, and we kind of retooled the blurb about the book on the sales page as well. So when we came around to our second did a promotions and countdown deal about 4 or 5 weeks ago at the end of March, that book was in a better position to resonate with the audience once we gave it the visibility. But I think that's a lesson that even if you've got the book, the packaging has to be just as designed for the audience that you're trying to sell it to. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It just won't stick up there. It won't sell once you've got the visibility. Having visibility is great, but books tend to slide away quite quickly. But the ones that stay up there, you look at people like Nick Smith and John Lundy and all these people in those kind of sci-fi subgenres that have their books stay up in the top 50 or 100 of those subgenres or the top 20 all the time. It's because they've got the package and they've got the book. The marketing is, maybe 5%, I think. It's the actual book itself and the package aimed at those readers that keeps the book sticking.
So if I'm hearing you right, to kind of paraphrase it, basically you're making your reader a promise. This book's going to be like this, and when when it delivers that, that's when.
So I think our original packaging, and Darren will probably agree with me, is that the original packaging sold one promise and then gave them something else. So when we aligned the packaging promise to the actual promise they got, it started resonating and the book stuck up those charts a lot higher. Obviously, we gave it another visibility push this time. When we did that, we found that it didn't slide away out of the charts as quickly. It got to that point, it sold well, it's descended a lot slower, and then it stayed at list price and continued to sell 3 or 4 times as much per day as it was. And during the period in the last month that the book has been doing really strong, we've had Amazon promoting a trilogy in the same series on a Kindle Daily deal, and another author's books, 5 books on a Kindle Daily deal. Multiple books have come on BookBub, and a majority of those books have actually slid past it. And I don't think it's anything special that we've done, except for that we've aimed the packaging and that book directly at those readers, and people keep buying it. So it's bounced back, whereas some of these other books that weren't selling before have slid away. And I think a lot has to be said for legacy sales of a book, and just having a book that people, once they see it, want to keep buying.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. Xavier, some questions from the site?
Yeah, we got a very serious question from Darren Weremouth. Carl, would you prefer to fight 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck?
1 horse-sized duck.
Why?
Really?
I don't know. It just seems like it would be like more of a challenge.
Then 100.
I thought you had a fear of ducks, though. I thought you feared ducks.
I do, but I also have a battle mace, so I'm not that scared.
We grow ducks pretty big here in Oregon. Maybe I should bring Carl over and he could take on some ducks.
Or you'll give him nightmares forever.
I think Zach actually had a serious question, which I'm kind of surprised. Anybody want to take that?
Zach is a good question asker. What was your collaboration process? Did one of you draft only and one of you do the polishing? Or I think I know the answer to this, but you can explain it more if you haven't already. He wants to know because he's
I kind of did a little bit, but basically what we did was we split the story into 2 main point of view characters and independently wrote those. Then we did, so that was the first draft. Then we did a second draft. We constantly tweaked and worked on each other's chapters as they were going up and looking at ideas.
And it was a one or the other, right? It was like a 1 point of view and then switched.
That's correct. Yeah, where it switched between the 2. And they were going up chapter by chapter into a Dropbox folder. Then it went to a second draft, which we went through and altered some things and changed some things. Then it went to the content editor, which was Aaron Sykes. And after that, Darren did a polish slash style to make sure that the writing matched closer across all the chapters, and did a bit of the work with Aaron, and then it went to the copy editor at the end. So we kind of wrote independently, but then the final couple of polishes drafts, Darren did the overall push over the top of it. Does that answer your question?
Did you know where you were going? Yeah, it does. Did you know where you were going with the story, or did you just say, I'll take the girl, you take the guy?
We had...
Nobody died.
I did say earlier, but basically what we did was we outlined the first 8 chapters, wrote those, and then discussed it again. But we had a fairly good idea of the ending already, and we had some of the major points. There was like a scene that happens in an underground bunker that Darren had come up with that he wanted to do. I had an idea to do something in a cave system, which I did. So that kind of just ideas that came up as we wrote, but we sort of outlined in batches. I think it was three times that we stopped and outlined the next bunch of chapters.
Cool.
I was looking
So,
for. There was another question. You go ahead, Xavier, and then I'll ask this other one.
okay, cool. So when I first got to know you, Carl, we talked a lot about fantasy, and more so than sci-fi. So, and I know you had a lot of different in work in progress fantasy novels and sci-fi as well before you started with Sixth Cycle. So after kind of getting used to marketing yourself through the sci-fi genre, do you feel better prepared to go back to fantasy when you do so, or do you feel like it's just going to be a whole other beast?
I think I've learned what I suspected, that there isn't a lot of crossover between subgenres at all, and even less so across major genres. So I don't think there's is a huge crossover between, say, space opera and dystopian fiction necessarily. So I think you would need to kind of think about that when you're targeting readers and writing towards readers. And there's even a bigger divide, I think, with fantasy and, say, science fiction. There's obviously going to be crossover people who read everything. But the post-apocalyptic readers specifically, I can't imagine a high percentage of those people buying books at the top of the charts on Amazon are also reading, say, epic fantasy. So I really would have to reconsider the way that I dealt with that. And when I do go back to fantasy, if I do, although Darren probably wishes that I wouldn't, I would probably now look at doing that under a pen name and separating it, because I don't think there's enough of a crossover to warrant using the same name that I've already established now as kind of a dystopian sci-fi author. And I think, if anything, it might just confuse people if I start publishing epic fantasy books or whatever under that name. So I probably will now use a pen name, which is kind of what I thought about doing originally. And I think definitely the last 6 to 8 months has definitely made me realize that genre hopping, in my opinion, is not going to build you. It will build you one kind of audience, but I don't think it'll get you all of the audiences of those genres. You're going to get someone who likes to read a lot of genres, opposed to the hardcore readers of each of those subgenres. For the majority, that's just a generalized statement, but I think that's what we're seeing on the store. Darren has written a lot of similar types of books, and if you go through and look at the same people that are buying those books, reviewing those books, and asking for copies of other books, they're the same type of reader that's coming back. If he went and started writing a romance, that's not going to happen, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with the ability to feed those audiences. Like, obviously writing a book takes time, and if you're going to be doing the genre hopping consistently, or otherwise, kind of building all of these funnels, that's a lot of writing. And if by chance these series individually do take off, you have then an obligation to satisfy that fan base. So, as you could be hindering the addictive quality of fiction by not having that second or third book out in whichever funnel is actually selling most.
Good point. I also, for those people that are listening on iTunes or whatever, I love the fact that Darren shared in the comments about putting your money where your mouth is when the repackaging and paying for a new cover. But from that, you did see immediate sales. And so,
it was a 1,500 unit turnaround just on the repackaging, basically.
Yeah. So sometimes, takes money to make money type of thing. I know a lot of indie authors, I think, would. I don't have the feed in front of me. I think it was $500 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 600.
Or 600.
But we hired a designer specifically to design a cover based on our story. It wasn't a pre-made cover. It was designed specifically for the book that we'd written, and it made its money back. Darren's the man that holds the purse strings and keeps an eye on all this stuff, but I don't want to go too specifically on how much money, etc., we've made or not made, but
Right.
I'm pretty sure it had paid for itself before we ran any ads.
So that's just that fact alone is, I think that's really interesting and really hits home that point of finding your audience and knowing what they are looking for and giving it to them. It's just just making the promise and giving it to them. So
yeah, it definitely works.
Xavier, there's a couple of questions from the site, wasn't there? I think.
Yeah. So just a little while ago, you talked about if you were switching to fantasy, you'd probably go with a pen name. Saffron is asking, what about a pen name for just a different sci-fi subgenre? Like she's considering doing something different for dystopian compared to what she uses for her sci-fi action adventure.
I don't think that's necessarily going to be as big of a problem. Dystopian action adventure and sci-fi is probably not as big of an issue. I know that Darren, for example, has done some alien invasion stuff. 6 Cycles more dystopian than it is post-apocalyptic, probably. He's done post-apocalyptic books. I think that's fine as long as there's a similar theme and people know what they're going to get from you, like the high-quality writing, the same type of packaging. But definitely, if you're going to go switching major things, dystopian to action adventure is probably not as big of a deal as going from, epic fantasy to techno thriller, for example. I think there's a big difference.
Yeah, no, I could see that too, but I could also see if you were trying to build those brands individually. But no, I do agree. When it's within the two different sci-fi subgenres, it is tough to go between them. Like look at most of the big famous sci-fi guys. They tend to go in between alien invasion and dystopian all the time. So
yeah, I think there's a bit of room to move in those genres, opposed to going far out there. Like if I was to write something like
steampunk,
a steampunk or something like that, I would definitely recommend using a pen name. I don't think it's worth confusing the readers that you've got, especially being that there's nothing, the ability that Amazon has given people to have basically as many pen names as they want. I just think that it's just worth doing. I just don't think it's worth confusing people.
And Darren has 2 questions. One, how important do you think the craft is? And 2, do you like dragons?
On the second question, I do like dragons, but not as much as Darren. He likes to pretend that he's not a big fantasy fan, but he's a big fan of Game of Thrones, and he has a Daenerys Targaryen wig that he likes to wear, which he likes to keep secret from people.
He's shown it to us one drunk night. Carl can confirm this.
Yeah. On the craft, I think that it is probably the most important thing now for an indie author to consider. Obviously, we've talked about trying to design books specific for the markets and targeted those markets, but a lot of that is to do with the type of writing. I talked a little bit about shifting to PA dystopian, the type of writing being faster paced, shorter sentences, a lot more descriptive. I think you need to really be filtering those characters in PA and dystopian. Everything needs to be filtered through the character's eyes, which is something that I wasn't necessarily always doing. I think that reading a lot, as I said earlier, and that means fiction and non-fiction, and constantly trying to improve your writing is what's going to set you apart. and turn you from a top 20, a top 100 author into a top 20 author. I think if you look at the guys, and I'm obviously focusing a lot on sci-fi at the moment, but those are the genres that I keep a close eye on. If you look at the top guys in those genres that constantly have their books at the top of the charts, their writing is of a high quality, and those readers keep coming back and buying their books, and they're the ones that keep improving their craft. I think if you have the packaging, you need to have the writing as well. I don't think all of this, sort of over marketing and all these different things that people try and do, Facebook parties and all that kind of stuff, and the whole idea of an author platform is something that we all kind of get dragged into when we first start looking at indie publishing. A lot of the voices out there talk about these things being vitally important. But I think writing high quality books and having a strong focus on the craft and the package of that book and a mailing list is going to do more for you than having 50,000 people follow you on Twitter.
That's a very good answer. What did you do specifically to improve it? Do you want to plug the Brandon Sanderson things on YouTube again? Because those were so good.
Yeah, I watched a lot of videos from people like that, but I also I really looked at when I changed to write sci-fi, I looked at reading a lot of those books that were doing really well and kind of working out why they were selling really well and what about that writing that was doing really well. And I read a lot of craft books on structure and some different things and really tried to focus on just tightening up my writing, really filtering a lot more through the eyes of the characters and getting more into the head of those characters, and basically just reading a lot, I think, is what people need to do. I hear a lot of people still say the best way to get better is to write more. Well, I think that's only probably true if you're reading in between that, because writing more, if you write 50 books and never ask or have your work reviewed by an editor like an Aaron Sykes, or work with these high-end content editors, or and you're not reading a lot of craft books and you're not improving your craft and having readers constantly provide feedback on it, then how do you know that you're actually getting better? I see a lot of indies pump out 10, 20, 30 books a year, and their writing hasn't necessarily improved a lot. And I think the results show that, and the people that seem to put a lot of time and effort into improving their craft definitely seem to reap the rewards.
How do you if you have 3 kids and you're writing, how do you make time for all that reading? Because I don't read as much as I should, because it feels like I'm wasting time sometimes.
When I was working part-time, I used to read on the train. I had a lot of commute time. Now I try and read. I signed up for Kindle Unlimited, so I pay, $9.99 a month. I try and read 3 or 4 books a month to make sure, of at least 2, 3, $4.99 to make sure that I'm making up that money. So it's kind of a value thing for me. I think it's just really important for me to keep an eye on what books are doing really well. And I know a lot of people say, I don't like to read in the genre that I'm writing because it ruins my voice, or a bunch of other stuff that I just don't buy into. I think ideas are cheap, and everyone's going to have a million different ideas. There's 50 million zombie books, and there's 50 million books about Ebola and all this kind of stuff. It's how you execute those ideas and how you put a unique spin on something that makes a good book. It's not trying to go left field and create something new for the audience that they don't want, like beyond a spin on something that's already popular. If you're trying to recreate the world, recreate a genre, 1 in 100,000 people might do that. Someone like a chick that wrote Twilight changed vampire books. But it's very, very rare for most people. They're better off understanding the market, understanding the readers, and then trying to come up with something unique enough within that confine, within the genre, if you want to make money.
Good point. On all those craft books that you've been reading, what ones would you recommend? What are some of your top ones?
One of the ones that I read reasonably recently was really good. Was I think it was called $1 Million Outlines. It's in like a series of $1 Million ideas. I can't think who the author was. I might be able to find it on Amazon. That was really good. Outlining, I think outlining definitely helped me a lot. And whilst I don't outline the whole book anymore, having a pretty good idea of how to structure and outline a book is definitely going to make your books better. And so working with, I think content editing has definitely helped improve my writing significantly, working with a content editor.
Cool.
And I like how you brought up the Kindle Unlimited as a motivation to be reading either more craft books or fiction books. Like, I don't think and like you said, you want to make sure that you're using that service to its best value. And in that same respect, I don't think people are worrying as much about their Netflix accounts and making sure that they're getting their worth out of their $8 a month.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people talk about putting their books, authors putting their books in Kindle Unlimited, and the plan is to take advantage of it by writing a bunch of really short stuff and putting it up for 99 cents and making $1.30 for the 99 cents. I don't think that's what readers are using it for. I'm not, and I know a lot of other readers who use it aren't. I think they see it as a value tool. So they're going to buy the $3, $4, $5.99 books and borrow those books, and they want value for money. So if they're going to only read 3 or 4 books a month, they want to make the money out of it. I don't want to specifically get the numbers, but like this month alone, our having 6 cycle in Kindle Unlimited, I think we shifted 800 borrows. You can't argue with the results of having a longer book in that system. I don't see a lot of these people who claim to pile a bunch of 99-cent short, 100-page, 56-page books, and they're getting a lot of borrows because the rankings are directly affected by the borrows, and the rankings certainly don't suggest that that's working for anyone.
No, and like you said, the readers want to get their maximum value out of it. So unlike, like there's lots of different ways that you can be doing promotions on your book, and free days and the Kindle countdowns, like perma-free, all these different things. But no matter what, it comes down to maximum value for the reader, for bang for their buck, and Kindle Unlimited is no different. With the one novel that I have with Dinosaur Noir, only when it is priced at its normal price, $3.99, do I ever get Kindle Unlimited buys or borrows, and that's because that's what it's worth. No one's going to be getting it on Kindle Unlimited when it's on its free day. They're just going to grab it for free. But if they see that it's something that's $3.99 and they have Kindle Unlimited, it's probably worth a borrow.
Good point. Yeah. I think it's funny. It seems like people watch more carefully, at least in the little bit of knowledge I have, about how much money they're spending on the books versus like an on-demand movie or something like that. Where it's.
Yeah, I think people do. And that's as much as with an on-demand movie. and renting a movie online for streaming, they tend to be same price almost as getting your average book on Kindle. You know, it'll be like that $3, $4, $5 range. So the time commitment is either 2 hours or how many hours the book is. So, and most books, if they are worth buying, tend not like Carl said, you know, if you want a book, you want a full book. It's an investment of time. So if it's a different measure of what you're looking for rather than a movie, because, you know, if you're looking for a movie, you're spending $4 for 2 hours. But when you're looking for a book and you're spending that same $4, you want to make sure that it's a good investment for that 10, 12 hours of reading that you're doing.
Yeah, well, if you just have to look, short stories don't sell. They just don't sell. Like, there's always going to be exceptions, but generally, short stories on their own on Amazon don't sell very well. So why would that suddenly change when someone can download it for free? I just don't think there's a market there for that type of stuff. Novels, specifically in genre fiction, full novels are what people want, and that's what's at the top of the charts. So give them that, and I don't feel that we would have made the same money on the other platforms off of just on the borrows alone that we got, say, this month, that we would have made on the other platforms. I just don't believe we would have. I can't see anyone proving me particularly wrong in sci-fi and fantasy on those other platforms on a consistent basis on places like Kobo and iBooks. And yes, I know that a lot of romance typically have done quite well on iBooks and some other platforms, but I think my advice to any new author right now would be put your book into Kindle Unlimited and take as much juice out of it as you can, and only go wide. Once the borrows and the money starts to dry up, I just don't think that those other platforms can make you as much money. And the added bonus of those borrows and the ranking that those borrows give you is going to put you in a better position visibility, keep your book higher in the ranks.
Good, yeah, good stuff. We are up on the hour, surprisingly, already. That went quickly. Anybody else got a last-minute question they want to sneak in?
I think Darren had one.
He wants to know if you think outlining is important first before you start.
Yeah, I think, like I said, at least having a pretty strong idea of what the idea in the book is that you're trying to write, and at least outlining the first several chapters is going to be a better idea than not. I think, in my personal experience, the books that don't outline tend to waffle a fair bit.
I like that you say you can just outline the first bit and then kind of figure out where you're going from there.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's certainly, I don't know if Darren's doing that on his other books, but that's certainly what worked out for us in the end on Sixth Cycle, and it's probably how we would work together on any other project.
Good stuff.
And real quick, Zach Bohannon just posted a comment that says he's awesome, basically. So.
That Carl is, or that Zach is?
No, that Zach is.
Yeah, and just that his 99-cent novel gets a ton of traffic on Kindle Unlimited.
Yeah, which is fine. But again, that's a novel. It's not a...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like you said, and like I was saying too, you know, it's all about value. The price is one thing, but you know, it is a full-length novel. So if they see it for that price, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. It's an investment of time, and it's only 99 cents.
I mean, Six Cycles the price is only $2.99. I mean, if it was $3 or $4.99, we'd probably get less paid buys and more borrows. But you know, I don't think the price is as important. I think it's the product that they're getting. Like Xavier said, the length of that book is what's going to sell, not necessarily the price. It's going to get borrows.
Yeah. And like anything, there's always an exception to the rule, right? But
of course, there is. Yeah. I'm just speaking generally based on market and how it looks, and personal experience. But.
Yeah. Well, Carl, this was really interesting listening to you talk from the being interviewed standpoint versus the other way around.
Yeah, I like it.
I did too. I really like the information, and I love the fact that you are willing to say, "Look, I changed this, I've changed that." So it's
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about Escalation Force, which I actually pulled down because I wanted to spend another month on the book before it published, because I valued the input of content editing, and even Darren's going to go over the draft and put his 2 cents in, because I feel that collaboration and that extra input into the book is going to turn that book from a book that probably right now, as it was, and I think Xavier has read a bit of it. I think it's got a strong hook and a good opening. It's got a strong cover, a good blurb. I think it's going to, on its own as it is right now, it probably would do well, reasonably well. I think if I spend the extra time on it that I'm going to and get the extra input into it and put out a stronger book and make sure the writing's even better than it is, when it gets the visibility, there's no reason why it can't stick up, around the top 20, 50 of the genre again. And that's really what we're all aiming at doing, I'm assuming anyway. I'm doing it because I want to make money, and I want to continue to make money and grow grow the amount of money and the amount of sales. I'm not trying to get famous. I just want to make a living out of it, and that's how I see you doing that, by continuously making sure that the product that you put up is better and not being afraid to go back and improve that product over and over again until you get the most out of it.
Yep. No, I totally agree with you, and I think it's encouraging for authors. You had it on pre-order, and so you had to take that down. So there's always consequences for these things, and there's always reasons why you have to do them. And I think it's important that writers who are going through this route, do kind of realize that there are these times that you have to do these things, and you have to experiment, and you have to be able to, life does not go onto a schedule, and even though we have the ability to do these pre-orders, and which is an amazing new feature, that KDP's added on, we have to know when the time is right to not only for ourselves to finish the book and get it out there, but when is the book itself done? Like you said, we can finish the book and we'll say, is it done? But were you too fast to say, is it done?
Yeah, I think because of the need to constantly have products out on Amazon and keep putting new books out, and algorithms and all the other crap that all these people say, I think it has become too rushed. I think people can take a little bit more time. The first launch of Six Cycle didn't go fantastically well. It sold pretty good, and it was selling every day. But once we restructured that book, we quadrupled sales by doing that on a daily basis. And I think that there's no need to rush. I think there's always a chance to fix things and to keep putting back into the products and reinvesting in your business and your products. That is the best thing that you can do. The whole idea of writing, putting a book out and then forgetting about it forever and moving on without improving your craft and without improving what you're doing. I don't personally feel that's long-term thinking. I think that it's putting your head in the sand and not realizing that there's some sort of issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, you're approaching it like a business person should, and I like the fact that you said, because your goal seems very clear. I don't necessarily want to be famous. I don't need to have this. I want to make money. I want to make a living. I want to write books. I like to write books, but I want to get paid enough so that I can pay my bills. That's, you got clear objective and you're executing. So
Yeah, I think a lot of people seems to still, and it's not everyone, but I see a lot of people dreaming of being an AJ Riddle or a Hugh Howey, and you can't even begin to try and become that person. The person that sells millions and millions of books. But I think everyone who wants to and takes it seriously has got the capability of making $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month even, if they take it serious, treat it like a business, reinvest in their business, put the time and the effort into the craft, and be smart about their marketing, and using the tools that are available for them. There's nothing wrong with making $2,000, $3,000 a month and being a middle-list author, as far as I'm concerned. It's still better than going to work for the government and or whatever other shit job that you have to do.
yeah.
Right? Sitting at home and watching movies from research, seems a lot more fun to me than spying on everyone.
That's a good point, Carl. Well, we've done our hour, and maybe we'll have you back on as a guest. I kind of like this new role for Carl. Carl's the guest and not Carl's the dictator, but
That he's all serious and helpful.
But no, in all seriousness, Carl, thank you very much. That was actually really insightful, and I really do appreciate your candidness. It was nice to hear. So, thanks for being on.
You're welcome.
All right.
You're all fired.
We're all fired. That's right. Last show, everybody. If you want to come to the after party, put your name in the little chat there, and we'll try to send out some invites if anybody is interested.
I might pop in for a minute, but I got to get the baby first. I've just heard him wake up. So.
Okay, so Carl's got daddy duty, so we're not even sure if he'll be there. Who knows what will happen, but okay. All right, but anyway...
When do we know what's going to happen in the after party?
That's true.
And Wade said duty, so...
Yeah, there might be some duties on his nappy.
Duty. And let's see, anything else? Nah, we don't know who's on the show next week, so don't worry about that. Just join us anyway, because
we'll have some.
It's a surprise, yeah. We'll have some cool guests, I promise. And so leave us a review on iTunes, because you guys said you would, right? And, do that.
I have one thing to say.
Oh, what's that, Carl?
Say hi to your mums for me.
Yay!
We got a new ending now, though, Carl. So I guess I'll go to Xavier for the last ones. And what do you have to say, Xavier?
Yeah, good night, internets.
Good night, internets.